Continuing from the previous episode 672. Chapter 1601. Eve of a Big War. D-State Soul. How is this possible? Everyone were stunned as they looked at the young figure, who had exited from the spatial tunnel. Even with Ji Yuan's calmness, his face was still involuntarily filled with a disbelief. Although a D-State Soul was not as shocking as a true elite Do-D, but it was ultimately related to the latter. It should be known that even the souls of those experts like Yan Jin and Lei Ying, who had reached the 8-star Do Shen class, had yet to reach this level. Moreover, all of them clearly remembered that half a month ago, Xiao Yan's soul was still at the perfect heavenly state. Half a month. What could be done in half a month? A brief period of training could swiftly exhaust half a month's time. Yet, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength had undergone an overwhelming transformation within this half a month. Xiao Yan, who had just returned from the heavenly tomb, involuntarily shook his head as he looked at his surroundings, which had suddenly become completely silent. Although only half a month had passed in the outside world, 2 years had passed inside the tomb of the heavenly tomb. Hence, Xiao Yan was unsurprised the others would feel that it was inconceivable. It was not too difficult to imagine that 2 years of training and the seemingly endless vast and mighty spiritual strength of the heavenly tomb soul allowed him to reach this stage. How did you manage to do it? Yan Jin licked his lips and finally could not help but ask. Although he did not focus on training his soul, he had still trained for so many years. However, his soul had currently remained at the perfect heavenly state. There was still an unknown distance to the D-State Soul. Ancestor Xiao Zhan had given me a gift. Xiao Yan replied without giving a detailed explanation. Yan Jin and Lei Ying were startled after hearing Xiao Yan's words. They immediately smiled bitterly and shook their heads. The admiration they had for this person had reached the peak. This person was indeed worthy of once being the strongest person on the Do-Chi continent. Despite having been dead for so many years, he still possessed such a terrifying ability. Have you obtained the method to revive Xiao Zhan? Ji Yuan also gradually calmed down. His eyes glanced at the space behind Xiao Yan and asked. Xiao Yan became quiet after hearing this. He shook his head and softly replied, Ancestor's soul fragment has already vanished from within the heavenly tomb. Ji Yuan was startled. He looked at Xiao Yan before sighing softly. Although he was unaware of just what had happened within the heavenly tomb, it was likely that Xiao Yan's soul advancement should be related to the vanishment of Xiao Yan's soul. His expression became a little complicated as he thought of this. His relationship with Xiao Zhan was filled with both competition and the friendship between men. He knew that if Xiao Zhan was not the clan head of the Xiao clan, it was very likely that the both of them would have been the best of friends. Unfortunately, the status of the both of them caused them to be destined not to be able to do as they wished. The clan was always at the top spot in their hearts. Tomorrow is the half-a-month dateline that the Hun clan has mentioned. Ji Yuan crossed his fingers. He stared at Xiao Yan and asked, What do you plan to do? What else can I do? I do not have any choice for my father's sake. Xiao Yan shook his head. He also felt a little helpless. Regardless of what the case was, he must rescue his father. This was the promise he had made to his 2 brothers. Lei Ying and Yan Jin exchanged glances after hearing these words. They could only sigh. They were aware that no one could be blamed for this. The ancient jade in Xiao Yan's hands belonged to the Xiao clan. He had an absolute right to use it as he pleased. Moreover, the current Xiao Yan was also considered a powerful ally in their fight with the Hun clan. This was especially the case after he had exited from the heavenly tomb. Even with their strength, they did not dare to underestimate this member of the younger generation. This was because they understood that by relying on the great strength of a D-State soul, Xiao Yan might not be afraid of them in a fight. Ji Yuan was not surprised at Xiao Yan's reply. He mused for a moment before speaking, In that case, let's leave tomorrow. The experts from our 3 clans will follow you this time around. Once your father safely arrives in your hands, all of us will attack together. We must snatch back the ancient jade or destroy it regardless of what happened. Ji Yuan's expression was strangely stern. This was because he understood that if the Hun clan managed to collect all the ancient jades and open the 2 Shi ancient god mansion, Hun Tiandi would be able to obtain the opportunity to advance into the Do-D class. At that time, it was likely that no one in this world would be able to fight him. This so-called alliance of theirs was undoubtedly like an insect trying to shake a large tree when it came to facing an elite Do-D. it was not completely useless. Xiao Yan nodded in the face of this. With the 3 clans following him, he would be bolder in confronting the Han clan. Even though he had reached the D-State Soul, it did not mean that Xiao Yan was able to fight with an ultimate expert like Han Tiandi. Moreover, the Han clan had many experts. Even if Han Tiandi did not show himself, just the nihility devouring flame and the 4 demon saints of the Han clan would give him a headache. We have also dispatched the news to the Sky Mansion Alliance during this period of time. It is likely that your people will also reach the Burial Mountain Range tomorrow. At that time, our 4 parties will unite. There is no need to fear the Han clan. Ji Yu Dao said. Xiao Yan nodded again. Currently, the Sky Mansion Alliance had already began to reveal their strength. Not only was there the ancestor of the Pill Tower and Xiao Chen, but there was also Xiao Yan, who had stepped into the D-State Soul. In terms of strength, it was no longer inferior to the Yan and Lei clans. I have already personally built a spatial tunnel linking the Yan, Lei and Gu clans while you were in the Heavenly Tomb. As long as any unexpected occurrence happens in any of the 3 realms, there would immediately be a feedback. The 3 clans has also entered into a state of high alert. All the elders who were in a retreat had been forcefully called out. They will gather together once an order is given. The miserable fate of the Ling, Shi and Yao clans had gave the remaining 3 clans the greatest warning. Hence, the connection of the space this time around was completely done by Ji Yu Yuan. There should be no one in this world who can break the spatial barrier he had placed without alerting him. Even Han Tiandi was unable to do it. Of course, this was unless the latter truly reached the Do D class. Since you have successfully exited your retreat, we are basically fully prepared. Now, we will just have to wait for tomorrow. Everyone's faces became grave after hearing Ji Yu Yuan's words. All of them clearly understood that there will be an earth-shaking big battle tomorrow. The scale of this big battle would likely be the biggest on in the Do-Chi continent in thousands of years. Night covered the Gu realm. Rays of cool moonlight poured down. Xiao Yan stood within the quiet small courtyard within the bamboo forest. His hands were behind him as his eyes looked at the sky. His expression was a little regretful and complicated. Without realizing it, it had been over a decade since he had arrived at the Central Plains from the Black Corner region. During this period of time, the youth from back then had lost all the tenderness on his face and slowly became the leader of the alliance, which dominated the entire Central Plains from someone who was unknown back then. Of course, the thing that had supported him to slowly progress to this stage was a simple obsession. It was to rescue his father, whom he had not met for decades. Father, tomorrow, we will reunite again. Xiao Yan clenched his hand. An ancient jade piece appeared in his hand. There was a weak spiritual light being emitted from the ancient jade. Xiao Yan's finger rubbed the spiritual light. After which, he lifted his head and inhaled a deep breath of air. Even though the current Xiao Yan had become a peak-level expert whom many on the continent looked up to, he was still unable to forget the doting and warm expression in his father's eyes in that small Wu-Tan city when the former genius who had turned into a useless fellow was being mocked by countless number of people. His father did not become even the least bit cold because of the evaluation from the outside world. Instead, he had reprimanded himself. A key reason that Xiao Yan was able to continue enduring the mockery for 3 years and end up blossoming was because of Xiao Zhan. Yan has now reached a far higher level than you have anticipated back then. Xiao Yan muttered to himself. He had trained hard and had finally reached the peak of this continent. However, he had not been able to meet the father whom he missed. Xiao Yan Gege. A gentle delicate figure gently leaned on Xiao Yan's back while the latter was softly muttering. Soft hands hugged his waist while an extremely beautiful face was lifted under the moonlight, causing the moon itself to become a little dimmer. Uncle Xiao will be very pleased if he learns of your current achievement. Xiao Yan flipped his hand and grabbed Xuan hand. A moment later, he withdrew the emotion within his heart and turned around. After which, he grabbed the beauty into his embrace. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "When I was young, I have told father that I want Xuan to become my wife. At that time, father had sternly warned me not to have such wishful thought. However, I can tell that he is extremely pleased and happy with Xuan. After recusing father, I will get him to preside over a wedding for us." Xuan's face gently leaned on Xiao Yan's chest. Her face was a little embarrassed upon hearing these words. However, her pretty eyes were filled with happiness. She gently nodded in an obedient manner. Xiao Yan's heart felt slightly hot as he looked at the delicate and beautiful flower-like alluring pretty face. He laughed and his arm grabbed Xuan-Er's soft and seemingly boneless waist. He lowered his head in front of Xuan-Er's embarrassed eyes and killed the beautiful full moist lips. With a wave of his sleeve, the door of the room was automatically opened. His body flashed and he rushed into the room. A bang sounded and the door was tightly shut. The night was quiet while the room was filled with love. The originally quiet GU clan was filled with the sound of rushing wind when the first ray of sunlight scattered down from the sky on the next day. Many powerful auras rose swiftly. The big war was about to arrive. Continuing from the previous episode 673. Chapter 1602. Dispatchment of the Army. Young Master Xiao Yan, it is time. The elderly face of Ling Ying wore a smile as he stood in front of the bamboo house and looked at the tightly shut door. His voice was soft as he called out. Creak. The door squeaked and Xiao Yan slowly walked out from the room. The energy around the place seemed to have been vaguely disturbed after he stepped forward. Those deep dark black eyes appeared as though it was a divine being that ruled over the souls. Ling Ying involuntarily bowed lower under the scanning of those eyes. The pleased expression on the corner of his mouth became increasingly dense. In the distant past, the young man had still appeared a little tender. Yet, he had reached the peak within a short few decades. Even Ling Ying could only look up to him. Young Mrs. Eyesight is extremely good. Ling Ying smiled warmly. He lifted his head and looked at the beauty quietly standing beside the young man. It was as though this brightest pearl of the GU clan would hide her dazzling brilliance only beside Xiao Yan and appear like a obedient little woman. She was just like the green-clothed young lady who was smiling and following being that youth in the Wu-Tang city decades ago. Let's go, old Ling. Goodbye. Xiao Yan lifted his head. He looked at the mountain in front of him. It was possible for him to detect a large group of powerful auras swiftly gathering at that spot. Moreover, spatial fluctuation was also being emitted from two other directions. It seemed that the experts from the Lei and Yan clan had also been mobilized. Xiao Yan did not wait after his words sounded. He held Xuan-Er's hand and flew towards the sky in a flash. Young Master Xiao Yan, I hope that you will return victorious. Ling Ying smiled and muttered as he watched the back of Xiao Yan Duo. By the time Xiao Yan Duo had arrived in the sky above the mountain, the area was already filled with many people. Numerous experts from the GU clan rose into the sky and formed an orderly formation. Vast and mighty auras flowed acting like a single entity. That great mighty caused even Xiao Yan, who had stepped into the D-state soul, to involuntarily be surprised. Ha ha, have they arrived? Gu Yuan appeared beside the two of them after they appeared. His smiling eyes swept over them. An unknown feeling was present within his eyes. A moment later, he suddenly laughed. It seems that the both of you are really planning on allowing me to be a grandfather as soon as possible. Gu Yuan's sudden words caused Xiao Yan to be startled. It also led to Xuan-Er's face to become like a red apple in an instant, which appeared quite cute. Cough. Xiao Yan coughed dryly. It was unexpected that this Gu Yuan, who was filled with a mighty pressure, would actually utter such teasing words. All he could do was to helplessly shake his head. He quickly swept his eyes over the place and asked, Is the GU clan going out in force? It has not reached the extent of going out in force. However, we must definitely show our true strength. Our opponent is the extremely mysterious and unfathomable Han clan. We must not be careless. Gu Yuan sighed and said. Xiao Yan nodded slightly. His eyes swept over many experts and his heart was once again stunned by the GU clan's strength. Gu Yuan was the strongest within the GU clan. Under him was likely that black submerged king, Gu Lai, whom Xiao Yan had hardly met. Based on Xiao Yan's estimation, the strength of the black submerged king had likely reached the initial 8-star Do Sheng class. Although he was a little weaker than the clan heads of the Yan and Lei clans, he was also a relatively powerful existence. Below the black submerged king, Gu Lai were the three immortals of the Gu clan. The three of them were at the 7-star Do Sheng class and were similar in strength to the 4 demon saints of the Han clan. After the three immortals were the many elders of the Gu clan. Xiao Yan had never seen most of these elders. Clearly, they should be those who frequently undertook a retreat to train. His eyes had only briefly glanced past them when he discovered no less than 5 of them having reached the 4 or 5-star Do Shen class. If this lineup was placed within the Central Plains, it would really be able to clear any obstructions. It was not mere rumors that allowed the Gu clan to take over the Shao clan and become the leader of the 8 ancient clans in name. Their strength is worthy of this position. Of course, this was the case if one excluded the usually mysterious Hun clan. Even Gu Yuan and the others did not dare to guarantee that they completely understand the true strength of this clan. The gazes of the many elders were also looking at Xiao Yan while the latter's eyes were sweeping over them. They smiled at him in a courteous manner. Although Xiao Yan's true ability was merely that of a 6-star Do Sheng, his D-state soul had gave them an exceptional pressure. When those black eyes swept over them, it was as though their very souls had been penetrated. Naturally, they did not dare to underestimate Xiao Yan because of his age. Swoosh! An intense rushing wind sound was suddenly transmitted from the distant sky as Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze. A large group of black figures flashed over the sky. Finally, they appeared in the sky one after another. Many powerful auras immediately spread, causing the surrounding to tremble slightly. Ha ha, clan head Gu Yuan, young friend Xiao Yan. All the elites from my Yan clan has been mobilized this time around. Yan Jin smilingly cupped his hands together and faced Gu Yuan. Dozens of people stood behind him. All of them possessed powerful auras. Clearly, they were true experts. Xiao Yan merely randomly swept his eyes over them. After which, they were paused on a spot behind Yan Jin. There was an enchanting beautiful woman in red robes there. The beautiful woman had a tempting smile. Her middle-aged attractive appearance was filled with a matured allure. However, Xiao Yan could tell at a glance that this beautiful woman was the second strongest expert from the Yan clan other than Yan Jin. Her strength had actually also reached the 7-star Do Shen class and was similar to the 3 immortals of the Gu clan. The beautiful woman had also detected Xiao Yan's eyes when they paused on her body. She lifted her pretty eyes and an enchanting smile was lifted on her face. There seemed to be a strange fluctuation being emitted from within her eyes. That fluctuation vaguely caused one to become a little absent-minded. Soul-tempting technique? Xiao Yan felt extremely surprised at this fluctuation. It was rumored that this was a kind of spiritual skill from the ancient times. It was able to covertly control someone without anyone noticing it. This could be considered strange. However, this was usually effective against those with spiritual strength that were weaker than her. The spiritual level of this pretty woman was clearly only at the perfect heavenly state. Using this so-called soul-tempting technique in front of Xiao Yan while possessing a spiritual strength of this level was really a joke. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled and shook his head after having these thoughts. He smilingly looked at the pretty woman. An invisible mighty pressure quietly spread from his brow and gently made contact with the fluctuation that the latter emitted from her eyes. Kai! That mysterious fluctuation from the pretty woman collapsed almost instantly upon this slight contact. Her delicate figure suddenly trembled. Shock appeared in her eyes as she looked at Xiao Yan. Her soul had actually trembled under the mighty pressure. D-state soul? The pretty woman was also an extremely experienced person. She quickly comprehended the situation after only a momentary shock. Her face immediately appeared as though she had seen a ghost and hurriedly stopped this little trick of hers. Ha ha! Young friend Xiao Yan, this is my Yan's clan elder Huo Ling. Yan Jim at the side laughed after feeling the pressure. After which, he turned his head and laughed towards the pretty woman. I have already told you not to play with your spiritual strength or you will only end up eating a bitter pill. Yet, you don't believe me. Kai, it's Fairy Huo Ling, not Elder Huo Ling. The pretty woman curled her lips. Immediately, her eyes were watery as they looked at Xiao Yan and laughed. It is unexpected that he has reached the legendary D-state soul despite being only this young. One can really not just a book by its cover. The Xiao clan had produced a Xiao Zhan back then. Now, it has produced another Xiao Yan. It seems the heavens has really blessed the Xiao clan. Those elders from the Yan clan behind Huo Ling also looked towards Xiao Yan in a stunned manner. D-state soul. Even clan head Yan Jin in the Yan clan had not reached this level. Fairy Huo Ling has really overly praised me. I was really lucky. Xiao Yan smiled. That fairy manner of address caused the smile on Huo Ying's face to become a lot more brilliant. Clearly, she really liked this form of address. Everyone should understand what we are going to do today. I shall not say anything more. Everyone should clearly understand the strength of the Han clan in their hearts. If they were to fight, one must not underestimate the enemy. The members of the three clans became quiet after hearing Ji Yuan opened his mouth. They nodded in agreement. The former's reputation amongst the ancient clans was quite great. Moreover, his peak advanced 9-star Do Sheng's strength caused one to feel some fear and respect. Since everyone understands, let's get moving. Ji Yuan looked at Xiao Yan upon seeing this. The latter nodded slightly. He waved his hand and the many vast and powerful auras suddenly surged in this space. Go! Ji Yuan waved his sleeve after his voice sounded. The space in front of him cracked and formed a huge tunnel. He directly walked into it. The grave-looking Xiao Yan and Xuan quickly followed. The experts from the three clans swiftly swarmed in. The spatial tunnel finally began to gradually scatter after the last person entered. Light figures swiftly rushed over the sky above the headquarters of the Sky Mansion Alliance on the Central Plains while the large army left the GU realm. After which, they flew towards the northwestern region of the Central Plains from all directions. The entire Central Plains turned into an uproar when such a large number of experts left the Sky Mansion Alliance. Everyone understood that the only enemy faction which could cause the Sky Mansion Alliance to dispatch such a large number of experts was the extremely mysterious Kun clan. The shadow of a battle enveloped the entire Central Plains. Continuing from the previous episode 674. Chapter 1603. Burial Sky Mountain Range. The Burial Sky Mountain Range stood at the northwestern region of the Central Plains. It was likely that many on the current continent were unfamiliar with this region. However, it was extremely well known to some of the older generation of the ancient clans. This was because this place was where the Han and Shao clans had fought back then. The Big War had once shook the entire Central Plains. There was an ancient battlefield deep within the mountain range. The battlefield was extremely vast and there was usually many magical beasts present. It could be considered a dangerous place. Hence, it appeared a little desolated. The ancient battlefield today appeared somewhat mysterious. Those magical beasts which used to roam unchecked had completely disappeared. It was actually impossible to find even a single magical beast on this huge battlefield. That scene appeared as though they had detected an earth-shaking big battle that was about to erupt in this place. Swoosh swoosh. A series of loud rushing wind sounds suddenly resounded over the mountain range, which all was absent of all beast roars. One could see a large number of figures appearing in the horizon. Within a couple of flashes, they had appeared in this ancient battlefield. We have arrived. Ji Yuan's feet gently landed on the ground. His eyes swept over this battleground that had been turned into ruins. His eyes appeared a little complicated. The big war between the Han and Shao clan back then had begun in this place. It was unexpected that their battle with the Han clan would also begin in this place thousands of years later. Search the mountain range. Many experts from the three clans rushed forward after everyone had just landed. They swiftly gave this mountain range a brief search as a precaution against any ambush that the Han clan had placed. It seems that the Han clan has yet to arrive. Yan Jin stepped forward. He looked at this somewhat desolated ancient battleground and remarked. Ji Yuan nodded slightly. Other than some magical beasts which were trembling under their pressure, there was no signs of any auras from the experts of the Han clan. Those from the Sky Mansion Alliance have arrived. Xiao Yan suddenly lifted his head and smilingly watched the northern sky. Some familiar ripples was vaguely emitted from that spot. Everyone looked in the direction after Xiao Yan's words sounded. However, they were unable to see anyone. Nevertheless, no one doubted Xiao Yan's words at this moment. Other than Ji Yuan, it was likely that no one else present could compare with Xiao Yan in terms of spiritual strength. Soon after everyone focused their eyes, some rushing wind sound had suddenly appeared in the northern sky. After which, a black mass of human figures rushed over from all directions. Their numbers was actually not any inferior to the number of people the three clans mobilized. It looks like the Sky Mansion Alliance has really dispatched all its strength. A surprise flashed over Yan Jin's and Lei Ying's eyes as they looked at the vast and mighty lineup. Although the Sky Mansion Alliance might be inferior to the Yan and Lei clans in terms of elites, the number of experts they possessed had reached a terrifying level. Haha, it seems that we are not late. Black shadows swiftly appeared in the mountain range from all directions in front of everyone's eyes. The person in front was naturally Yao Lao. Behind him were Kai Lin, Little Fairy Doctor, Xiao Chen and the others. Even the ancestor of the Pill Tower and old man Shen Nong had followed. It seemed that Yao Lao and the others had been busy recruiting this elder, who possessed an extremely great attainment in alchemist skills. Both parties had naturally engaged in polite conversation as the large army gathered. The ancestor of the Pill Tower and old man Shen Nong could be considered to be familiar with the three clans. They naturally had a lot to talk now that they had met. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, merely glanced at those from the three clans before walking towards Xiao Yan. "Are you all right?" Xiao Chen glanced at Xiao Yan. His stern face revealed a smile as he asked. Xiao Yan also grinned in the face of this kin, who could also be considered his ancestor. He nodded. However, he did not tell Xiao Chen about what had happened to Xiao Zhan at this moment. He understood that Xiao Chen and Xiao Zhan were very close. If the former was to learn about this news, it would likely be a big blow to him. Hence, there was no harm in temporarily keeping it a secret. A fragrance suddenly pounced over while Xiao Yan was chatting with Xiao Chen. He lifted his head and saw Kai Lin's bewitching cold face. Xiao Yan rubbed his nose and laughed dryly after seeing Kai Lin's somewhat cold manner. "Elder sister Kai Lin, we have met again. Is Xiao Xiao doing well?" Xuan who was standing beside Xiao Yan, saw Kai Lin slowly walking over. A ripple appeared in her eyes before she inquired with a gentle smile. Kai Lin's cold face revealed a slight smile upon hearing this. He softly said, "She's well. However, she is bemoaning that a certain person being absent from home all the time." Xuan smiled upon hearing those words. Xiao Yan by the side could only shake his head helplessly. It seemed that Kai Lin was a little displeased that he had been missing for such a long time. "Are your injuries healed?" Kai Lin curled her lips slightly after seeing Xiao Yan's manner. Her tone was suddenly a lot gentler. Although she was a little angry with Xiao Yan for not returning home despite being injured, rational thoughts still dominated her mind. That feeling was merely something that a woman normally had. I'm fully recovered." Xiao Yan smiled. He immediately swept his gaze around and asked, "Isn't the Alliance afraid of someone destroying its foundation with so many of its experts being dispatched?" "Yao Lao has said that this is very important to you," Kai Lin replied. Xiao Yan was startled. His heart immediately became warm. With the arrival of the army from the Sky Mansion Alliance at the ancient battlefield, the entire mountain range had quickly become a lot more lively. Moreover, there were also many experts from the central plains outside of the mountain range who had been attracted because of the activity. However, they did not dare to step into the mountain range after arriving at the Burial Sky Mountain range. This was because they could sense that the auras gathered in this place had reached a terrifying level. If they were to be dragged into a battle at such a level, it was very likely that they would end up dying. After a brief interaction following the gathering both parties, everyone once again became cautious. Their sight spread over the place and encompassed the entire Burial Sky Mountain range. Any activity present would be immediately feedback to Xiao Yan's group. Time slowly passed amidst this wait. The moment the bright sun reached its peak, Xiao Yan and Ji Yuan, who had been sitting on a huge rock, suddenly opened their eyes together. A low voice caused everyone to become suddenly tensed. "They have arrived." The interior of the mountain suddenly revealed layers of black fog after the voices of those two sounded. Black fog lingered over the place. Finally, it turned into a huge spatial tunnel. Numerous mighty sinister auras surged from it. Black fog surged in the sky and directly cut off the sunlight. Immediately, the temperature of the surroundings fell. A kind of dark and cold aura spread. This Burial Sky Mountain range has not been so lively for a long time. The black fog churned in the sky and Hun Tiandi's figure appeared from nowhere. His eyes swept over the large army below. A smile appeared on his face as he spoke. The Nihility Devouring Flame, the 4 demon saints of the Hun clan and many other Hun clan's experts also flashed and appeared behind Hun Tiandi. It seemed that the Hun clan was also clearly aware of the battle today. Hence, it had also maneuvered quite a lot of experts. "Hun Tiandi, return the ancient jades of our 3 clans. Otherwise, we will definitely attack your GU realm in the future." Lei Ying let out a cold cry. His expression sunk after seeing Hun Tiandi appeared. Losing the ancient jade had caused him to be extremely furious. Naturally, he could not suppress the anger in his heart now that he had seen the other party attacking the Hun realm. There is perhaps no one with the strength to do so in the present world. Hun Tiandi laughed out loud in the face of Lei Ying's furious cry. He immediately ignored the former as his eyes were thrown towards Xiao Yan. He spoke in a faint voice, "What do you plan to do? Are you going to use the ancient jade to exchange for the person you want, or are you going to forcefully snatch him?" "I wish to meet my father." Xiao Yan's eyes did not shift away as he stared at Hun Tiandi and slowly said. Hun Tiandi glanced at Xiao Yan upon hearing this. He immediately waved his hand and the space behind him fluctuated. The sound of chains soon sounded. After which, a prison, which was formed from black fog, appeared in the sky. There was an elderly figure seated within. Many chains tightly entangled around him like poisonous snakes. Xiao Yan's eyes were focused on that elderly figure the moment the prison appeared. His body involuntarily trembled. Although it was a little blurry, the blood flowing within Xiao Yan immediately told him that the figure was indeed his father, Xiao Zhan. Decades had passed. The high-spirited clan head from back then had become this white-haired elderly figure. His originally strong body had become skinny and frail during this time. He had been imprisoned for decades. Xiao Yan's body continued to tremble. He looked at the heavy metal chains on that elderly figure. Waves after waves of wild murderous intent churned within his heart. He clenched his fist tightly, allowing his nails to press into his palm. Droplets of blood rolled out from them and fell. Hun Tiandi, if I have the opportunity to do you, I will turn your Hun clan upside down. Xiao Yan's blood-red eyes suddenly turned towards Hun Tiandi. His voice was hoarse and low. At the same time, an incomparably frightening spiritual fluctuation spread in wave-like fashion with him at the center. Immediately, dark clouds churned and thunder roared. D-State Soul? Those experts from the Hun clan, who had just gave Xiao Yan a smile of disdain, suddenly had stiffened expressions after the spiritual fluctuation was emitted. Even Hun Tiandi finally had a slightly altered expression. Clearly, he did not expect that Xiao Yan's spiritual strength had actually soared until such an extent within a short half a month. What a great Xiao Yan! Hun Tiandi's voice was low and deep. There was a faint murderous intent within it. The current Xiao Yan had finally caused him to feel a little threatened. Xiao Yan? The elderly figure, being heavily restrained by the metal chain within the cage, suddenly trembled because of Hun Tiandi's words. He slowly lifted his head. A turbid expression appeared in his eyes. Finally, they paused on the black-clothed young man, who was floating in the sky a short distance away. His body stiffened immediately. Tears rolled down from his eyes. His hoarse elderly voice was filled with an incomparable sadness. Yan. Continuing from the previous episode 675. Chapter 1604. Father-son reunion. The entire place was completely silent. Only the elderly voice, which caused one to feel an endless amount of sadness, reverberated across the sky. Xiao Yan was still a weak youth when they had separated back then. However, that separation at that time had lasted for decades. Hatred filled the youth's heart during this long period of time. He had trained with all his might, escaping from death time and time again while breaking through his limit. All of it was merely to rescue his father, who had once doted on him, and allow the latter to once again enjoy life in his old age. Ji Yuan and the others became quiet as he looked at the somewhat skinny young man in the air. They knew quite a lot about Xiao Yan's past. Hence, they clearly understood just how much effort and sacrifice he had put in. An ordinary person was only able to see his extraordinary achievement. However, they had forgotten just how many life-and-death battles were hidden under this glaring achievement. This fellow is really a man. No one in my Lei clan can compare with him. Lei Ying sighed softly and muttered. Xiao Yan was able to slowly climb from being the tender youth back then until a giant that even they must regard seriously. Moreover, he also needed to escape from the assassins that the Hun clan had dispatched during this period of time. The difficult journey had not only failed to cause the youth to have an early death, but had instead become a grindstone for him to step onto the path of the strong. All of them admitted that they would definitely be unable to do better than Xiao Yan if they were in his shoes. After all, Xiao Yan relied only on himself. The once prominent Xiao clan did not leave him with any wealth. The experts from the Lei clan were quiet in the face of Lei Ying's soft sigh. They were unable to refute him. Xiao Yan gege. Xuan bit her lips softly. Her pretty eyes contained a redness as she looked at the repeatedly trembling back. She was able to sense the surging emotions in the latter's heart. She was well aware of the effort Xiao Yan had put in during these years. That elderly figure within the prison lifted his hand with great difficulty. His eyes stared intently at the black-clothed young man. He could still see some traces of the youth from back then on the already matured face. The son, whom he was once proud of, had really once again appeared in front of him. Child. Tears continued to flow from his eyes. After which, he suddenly pounced forward. His voice was hoarse as he roared, "Yan, leave." After being imprisoned by the Hun clan for so many years, he was clearly aware of just how terrifying the Hun clan was. The Do Huang or even Do Zong, who could dominate the Jia Ma Empire back then, was only considered ordinary in that place. Such a strength was sufficient to cause one to feel a sense of hopelessness. Xiao Yan looked at the elderly figure, who was being restrained by heavy metal chains. A moment later, he smiled and lifted his head. He inhaled a deep breath of air. Regardless of how much hardship he had suffered, his father was at the very least still alive. What a touching scene! Hun Tiandi laughed faintly. His eyes looked towards Xiao Yan and said, "Perhaps you should be thanking us. Your father has an ordinary talent. If he was to train normally, he will not be able to reach the Do Huang class in his lifetime. In order to allow him to live safely until now, we have given him quite a lot of medicinal pills of our Hun clan. Otherwise, such accident might have long since happened to him." I will." Ji Yuan and the others frowned upon hearing Hun Tiandi's words. However, a smile rose on Xiao Yan's face. He nodded gently and laughed. "You can be rest assured that Xiao Yan will remember this big favor." Lei Ying and the others were startled as they looked at the smile on Xiao Yan's face. A dense chill rose within their hearts. A person with a ferocious look was not terrifying. A terrifying person was someone who was able to keep a smile on his face while a murderous intent was surging within his heart. Hun Tiandi's face twitched slightly. Xiao Yan's talent was as glaring as Xiao Zan back then. However, the former's viciousness had clearly greatly surpassed Xiao Zan. Hun Tiandi stared at Xiao Yan's blood-red eyes. He clearly understood that the words Xiao Yan had uttered earlier were not mere words of anger. If Xiao Yan was given the opportunity, Hun Tiandi believed that the former would definitely exterminate the entire Hun clan until none of them remained. However, it was likely extremely difficult for such an opportunity to appear. Transaction? Xiao Yan clenched his hand. An ancient jade flashed and appeared. It was the final Tuo Shi ancient god jade. Xiao Yan did not try using a counterfeit jade. This was because he understood that this method would not work on an expert like Hun Tiandi. A greed and desire flashed across Hun Tiandi's eyes as he looked at the ancient jade in Xiao Yan's hands. Once he obtained this final piece of ancient jade, he would learn of the location of the Tu Shi ancient god mansion and subsequently open it. At that time, he would truly leap into becoming the overlord of this world once he obtained the embryonic D-tier pill inside it. At that time, the so-called alliance would be just like an ant in his eyes. A flip of his hand could easily destroy it. The bodies of Lei Ying's group became a lot more tense after they saw Xiao Yan take out the ancient jade. However, no one uttered anything to stop Xiao Yan at this moment. From Xiao Yan's appearance earlier, he would likely turn against anyone who tried to stop him from rescuing his father at this moment. "We will exchange the person and jade together. You should understand just how simple it is for me to kill your father. Hence, you better not allow me to see you pulling any tricks." Hun Tiandi withdrew his eyes and slowly said. Xiao Yan glanced at Hun Tiandi. He spread his hand and the ancient jade slowly rose under his control. Seeing this, Hun Tiandi also waved his sleeve. The prison formed by the black fog scattered. With a flick of his finger, those metal chains on Xiao Zan's body were all released. Finally, he clenched his hand. It turned into a black ray of light that grabbed onto Xiao Zan. Here, Hun Tiandi waved his large hand. Xiao Zan was brought to Xiao Yan under the restraint of the black light. After which, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the ancient jade also shot directly towards Hun Tiandi. At the same time, Xiao Yan pressed his toes on the air and shot forward. His large hand grabbed onto Xiao Zan. A suction force erupted and he pulled the ladder over. He slashed his hand downwards and the black restraint around Xiao Zan's body was cut. Hun Tiandi grabbed onto the ancient jade just as Xiao Yan had managed to rescue Xiao Zan. Even with his calmness, he could not help but laugh out loud as he sensed the warmth in the ancient jade. Now that the ancient jade was in his hand, he was already able to see himself stepping into the stage that he dreamed of. "Father, Xiao Yan's excited body trembled involuntarily as he caught hold of Xiao Zhan. His body flashed and he quickly flew into the alliance. After which, he carefully placed Xiao Zhan down. Yan it is really you. Escaping from the restraint and being rescued had occurred in a split second to Xiao Zhan. He had just recovered his focus when he saw the face that was in close proximity. His trembling hand touched Xiao Yan's face. That terrified manner was as though he was afraid that this was only an illusion. This was in spite of him constantly hoping for this day to come. Father, you have suffered. Sorry. Seeing that thin ice-like appeared of Xiao Zhan, even Xiao Yan could not help but feel his eyes turn red. Both of his legs heavily knelt in front of the former. Even the huge rock under him had ended up with many crack lines. It is really you. Xiao Zhan's hands touched Xiao Yan's face in a trembling fashion. He sensed the warmth and his tears rolled down uncontrollably. This scene caused all those around to feel sad. Yan quick get up. It is all because father is useless. Xiao Zhan wiped off his tears. He hurriedly lifted Xiao Yan to his feet and looked at this face, which had become more matured than back then. His face involuntarily revealed a pleased expression. The thing that a father really wanted to see was the growth of his child. The person whom he was most worried about when he was captured back then was this youngest son. However, this child was his greatest miracle and pride. Xiao Yan inhaled a breath as he looked at the messy Xiao Zhan, who appeared much older compared to back then. He softly said, "Father, big brother and second brother are all waiting for you. I will bring you to meet them once the matter here is over. Now, however, allow me to settle some matters. Protect my father." Xiao Yan turned his head and spoke to those experts from the Sky Mansion beside him. "Alliance Chief, you can be rest assured that we will protect him until our deaths." Those dozens of Sky Mansion experts, who had reached the peak of the Dado Zun class, immediately replied respectfully after hearing this. Immediately, they moved and appeared around Xiao Zhan, providing him with a tight protection. Yan this. Xiao Zhan was startled as he watched this scene. These people around him all possessed powerful and terrifying auras. They were considered quite strong even in the Hun clan. However, he felt a great disbelief in his heart as he watched these experts in his eyes being incomparably respectful when speaking to Xiao Yan. Could it be that the young son whom he had once needed to protect had already become this powerful? "Father, there is no need to worry. They will guard you." Xiao Yan withdrew the emotions within his heart. He smiled slightly towards Xiao Zhan before turning around. An extremely dark and chilly murderous intent covered his eyes. The murderous desire in his heart had reached a rich and unrestrainable extent. Hence, he must kill. Ji Yuan, Lei Ying and the others threw their gazes over when Xiao Yan had turned around. They looked at him. There was also a chill surging in their eyes. The Hun clan had already managed to gather all of the two Shi ancient god Jade. They must definitely not be allowed to leave smoothly. Xiao Yan lowered his chin in the face of their glances. He quickly lifted his head and looked towards Hun Tiandi, who was holding onto the ancient Jade and laughing wildly towards the sky. A ferocious arc was formed on the corner of his mouth. Immediately, he smiled and spoke softly. "Let's attack." Surging murderous intent spread over the entire place as the words sounded. Continuing from the previous episode 676. Chapter 1605. Big Battle. Killing desire suddenly surged within the eyes of Lei Ying, Huo Jin and the rest after Xiao Yan's words sounded. The energy around them began to fluctuate intensely. "Set up the formation." A couple of stern cries resounded throughout the sky at almost the same time. Those from the Ji clan, Yan clan, Lei clan and even the Hun clan began to activate their formations with lightning-like speed. Terrifying Do Chi pillars charged to the clouds from all directions. The mighty aura caused the hearts of those observers outside of the mountain range to tremble. They repeatedly rejoiced that they had not charged in. Otherwise, they would likely perish in the face of such a violent big battle. It seems that all of you are indeed unwilling to give up. The smile on Hun Tiandi's face was slowly withdrawn as he stood in the sky. He once again transformed into that seemingly cheerful, indifferent manner. He lowered his head to look at Xiao Yan's group. It seemed that he was unsurprised at their sudden attack. He also understood that Yu Yuan, Xiao Yan and the others would definitely not simply sit back and watch their Hun clan obtain all 8 pieces of jade and successfully open the ancient god mansion. "Hun Tiandi, hand over the ancient jade. Otherwise we will definitely join hands and flatten your Hun clan." Lei Ying's eyes were furious as he cried out. Han Tiandi involuntarily laughed upon hearing this. He flipped his hand and kept the ancient jade in his hand into his storage ring before he smiling said, "Oh, I am really curious about how you end up in this situation if you possess this ability. Han Tiandi, we will not allow to easily open the ancient god mansion." Ji Yuan's face was as deep as water. His body slowly rose into the air as a terrifying fluctuation slowly spread from within his body. Dark clouds quickly gathered in the sky as thunder roared. Xiao Yan, Ling Ying, Yan Jin and the experts, who were stronger than 5-star Do Shengs from the 3 clans as well as the Sky Mansion Alliance, rose into the sky. Their auras surged and the color of the sky changed. In terms of the number of top-level experts, the 3 clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance combined would not be inferior to the Han clan. It was not possible to tell just who would emerge victorious if they were to fight. Ji Yuan, I have said before that with the destruction of the Shao clan, there is no longer anyone who can stop my Han clan. Han Tiandi laughed. Ji Yuan frowned. He was just about to speak when the hot-tempered Lei Ying cried out in a deep voice, "Why are you saying so much nonsense to him? All members of the Lei clan listen up, use the 9-dragon sky lightning formation." Understood. The many experts from the Lei clan replied with cold and stern faces after hearing Lei Ying's cry. Immediately, many bright silver light rays rose from within their bodies and swiftly gathered into a mighty thundercloud in the sky. Silver light flashed. Finally, it turned into a 10,000 feet large lightning dragon. The rolling thunder caused the land to tremble. Go! The moment the lightning dragon appeared, it ruthlessly collided into the large army of the Han clan in the sky under the control of the many experts from the Lei clan. Yan clan, great burning sky technique. Yan Jin let out a cold cry after the Lei clan attacked. Monstrous flames immediately surged. It was as though it intended to incinerate this entire place. Finally, the flame turned into a rolling sea of fire that swept towards the Han clan. Ancient God Mirror. The Ji clan had also once again formed the ancient mirror that covered the entire place. Rays of light flowed on it. Soon after, an incomparably large light pillar shot out. Swoosh swoosh. All attacks erupted at this moment. The energy fluctuation easily destroyed the surrounding towering mountains, leaving nothing behind. Han Tiandi watched the ferocious attacks rushing over from below with indifferent eyes as he stood in the sky. The sound of clattering chains was emitted from the black clouds that covered the area behind him. After which, many clashing sound appeared. Countless number of black chains shot out from within the black cloud and swiftly formed a dragnet in the sky. Black clouds churned over the chains. Suddenly, many ferocious faces appeared on the black net and continuously emitted some sharp miserable screech. Bang bang bang. The many attacks suddenly arrived as the black net was formed. Immediately, the whole place trembled intensely under the terrifying collision. The land cracked, forming many huge gully-like crack lines. The black net collapsed after the frightening storm in the sky had gradually scattered. However, it managed to block all of the attacks from below before it collapsed. The frightening strength of the Han clan was once again revealed. Han Tiandi, this time around let the both of us decide on a victor. Ji Yuan foot stepped on the empty space. His body suddenly shot into the clouds while a stern cry spread over the area within tens of thousands of kilometers in a vast and mighty manner. Han Tiandi smiled faintly. His body moved and directly appeared in front of Ji Yuan. He understood that the both of them were the strongest representative from both factions. Both of them must restrain each other. Otherwise, the formation of both parties would collapse. Charge! Lei Ying and Yan Jin cried out loud after seeing Ji Yuan intervene to restrain Han Tiandi. The experts of the 3 clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance rushed out from behind. Many experts from the Han clan flew out from the black cloud in a swoosh sound. Immediately, a big fight erupted in the sky. Lei Ying and Yan Jin had a clear target. They directly locked onto the Nihility Devouring Flame. Other than Han Tiandi, the strongest in the Han clan was the Nihility Devouring Flame. On the other hand, only the both of them from the Alliance's side combined could stop him. Do you really think that the both of you are a match for me just because you have gotten some benefits the last time? The Nihility Devouring Flame laughed coldly after seeing Lei Ying duo charging towards him. He waved his large sleeve. Black flame rose in a monstrous fashion and directly charged towards Lei Ying duo. Immediately, a frightening, devouring power spread. With an increasing number of experts exchanging blows, the entire mountain range began to tremble intensely. That scene caused the expressions of those people in the distance to experience a great change in expression. Bang! Xiao Yan was expressionless as he threw a palm and shattered the spiritual body of an elite Dozun of the expert from the Han clan into dust. His body immediately flashed and he appeared in front of another expert. Each time he struck, there would be an expert from the Han clan being defeated. Even some expert Do Sheng were seriously injured and forced back in Xiao Yan's hands after a couple of exchanges. Xiao Yan did not attack those experts from the Han clan who he could not finish off quickly. Currently, he wished to kill the most number of experts from the Han clan with the fastest speed. Currently, he wished to use the fastest speed to kill the most number of people from the Han clan. With his efficiency, the number of Han clan experts who had been killed in Xiao Yan's hands within a short few minutes had reached the double digits. The benefits brought about by the D-State Soul had also been revealed in this fight. Rich murderous aura covered Xiao Yan's body. Bang! Xiao Yan extended his hand into the blood fog after beating an elite 3-star Do Sheng into a cluster of blood. He clenched his hand and the remaining soul fragment was vaporized into nothing. Kai! A ripple suddenly appeared behind Xiao Yan just as he had just killed this elite Do Sheng from the Han clan. A dense black flame surged. It turned into a black spear that ruthlessly struck towards the back of Xiao Yan's head. However, that black spear was still a couple of centimeters from Xiao Yan's head when it was sent flying with a clang sound. That scene appeared as though there was an invisible barrier around Xiao Yan. Han Mie Sheng, you are indeed still alive. Xiao Yan turned his head. His eyes looked towards the human figure that was completely wrapped in a black flame. Although Xiao Yan was unable to clearly assess his appearance, the feeling from his D-State Soul had allowed him to recognize the latter almost immediately. This person was the chief of the Hall of Soul, Han Mie Sheng, who had fled with a trace of his soul after being killed by Xiao Yan back then. Xiao Yan, I will not die so easily. Sir Nihility had helped me create a body with his essence flame. My current self cannot be compared to back then. The black flame churned as a pair of scarlet eyes, which was full of hatred, stared at Xiao Yan. His dark and cold voice was accompanied with viciousness as he had emitted. An arc was formed over Xiao Yan's icy cold face after he heard this. Hand over your life to me. Han Mie Sheng's hand trembled. The dense black flame directly turned into 1,000 feet large black flame chain that trickily shot towards Xiao like a vicious snake. Shatter! Xiao Yan did not show any signs of attacking in the face of Han Mie Sheng's assault. He merely uttered a single word. Crack! Invisible spiritual fluctuation swept out after Xiao Yan's voice sounded. The black flame chain collapsed almost instantly. Even the black flame on it had become incomparably dim. The attack from a D-State Soul was something that even an 8-star Do Sheng would not dare to underestimate. Although the Nihility devouring flame had spent a great effort to reconstruct his body, his strength was at the very most at the 7-star Do Sheng or so. There was far too much of a gap with the current Xiao Yan. All it took was a brief exchange for Han Mie Sheng to be defeated so quickly. The latter's expression was slightly altered. Although he was aware that Xiao Yan had stepped into the D-State Soul, he could not believe that he would be so pathetic in the other party's hands. Withdraw. Although a vicious thought was churning in his heart, Han Mie Sheng had also understood that his current self was no longer a match for Xiao Yan. He immediately clenched his teeth and quickly pulled back. You will not get to escape this time around. Xiao Yan's eyes looked at Han Mie Tian in a cold and indifferent manner. He took a stride forward and the space fluctuated. He had actually appeared behind the ladder in a ghost-like fashion. He pressed his finger forward and directly penetrated through the black flame around Han Mie Tian. The frightening strength of the D-State Soul erupted without being held back. Bang! Han Mie Sheng's body suddenly stiffened amidst the low and deep muffled sound. The black flame around him disappeared immediately, revealing a shriveled figure inside. There was no injury on his head, but those eyes of Han Mie Tian were hollow. His soul had completely vanished from being struck by Xiao Yan's finger earlier. Is this the spiritual pressure of the D-Soul state? Xiao Yan muttered to himself as he looked at his finger. He did not use any Do Qi for the purifying demonic lotus flame to kill Han Mie Tian. All he did was to rely on his spiritual strength to kill the latter with lightning-like speed. Such a frightening strength was indeed worthy of the word, D.